Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service. This talk was given by Lama Matthew Palden Gocha.
So the Rime Center's statement, resisting oppression, upholding compassion, a path forward through the six paramitas in troubled times, guides our response to systematic oppression, attacks on disenfranchised communities, and democratic erosion. And this framework emphasizes the six paramitas or perfections, integrating compassion, wisdom, and ethical integrity into action. And today we are finishing our reflection on this statement by focusing on the paramita of wisdom. The statement reads, and I quote, "Wisdom reveals the profound interconnectedness of all beings, reminding us that harm to one is harm to all. It invites us to look beyond surface-level divisions and to deeply understand the root causes of suffering. In the face of injustice, wisdom guides us towards actions that are thoughtful, intentional, and grounded in clear understanding of their potential impact. It helps us to see beyond the immediacy of our emotions and consider the long-term consequences of our choices. In times of political unrest, wisdom calls for a careful examination of the underlying causes of division. It challenges us to discern truth from falsehood, to resist the temptation of simplistic solutions, and to engage with complexity rather than retreat into certainty. Wisdom asks us to reflect on how we seek knowledge. Are we drawing from diverse sources? Are we engaging in meaningful dialogue? Or are we reacting impulsively based on emotion? It encourages us to pause, analyze, and act with clarity rather than being swept away by the currents of anger or fear. By integrating wisdom into our approach, we can navigate challenges with a sense of purpose and discernment. And this understanding empowers us to work for change without succumbing to hatred or despair. Wisdom also guides us to discern the most skillful means to address suffering, whether through advocacy, education, or direct action, encouraging us to look beyond superficial divisions and recognize the shared humanity of all beings, even those who perpetrate harm." End quote. So this morning I wanted to offer a reflection to this part of the statement titled "The Silent Symphony of Interbeing, Navigating the Currents of Suffering with Wisdom's Compass." So what is the sound of the world's suffering when we truly listen? And what does it mean to move through that sound in harmony with wisdom as our guide? Today's teaching invites us into a space of deep listening, where silence is not absence, but presence, and where wisdom is not cold detachment, but warm discernment. This title is a teaching in itself, The Silent Symphony of Interbeing. So let's just begin with two words, silent symphony. Well, it's a paradox, a quiet contradiction, something to sit with. A symphony suggests grandeur, layers of sound, intricacy, movement, and tension. A full orchestra of life. But silence invites something else, stillness, inwardness, a kind of sacred attentiveness. A symphony without sound, what does that mean? It means we are listening for a different kind of music, not one made with instruments, but one made with presence. It points to the subtle, often unseen harmonies that shape our lives. The vibrations of care, of harm, of compassion that ripple outward, even when there's no word spoken. This image, this silent symphony, reflects something essential to the Dharma, the aesthetic of paradox. The truth that sometimes the quieter we become, the more we can hear. The more attuned we are to inner stillness, the more we begin to perceive the subtle music of existence itself, the vibrational truth of interbeing. This is the music of interbeing, a term beloved by Thich Nhat Hanh and deeply aligned with the Buddhist teachings on dependent origination. And he says, Thich Nhat Hanh says, interbeing is the understanding that nothing exists separately from anything else. We are all interconnected. By taking care of one person, you take care of yourself. By taking care of yourself, you take care of the other person. End quote. Let that land just for a second. This term interbeing means nothing exists independently. All life is interwoven. What affects one affects all. The inclusion of this word, this view, roots us in the non-dual, interdependent worldview of Mahayana Buddhism. We do not exist in isolation. We inter-are. Your joy affects mine. My suffering ripples through you. A stranger's pain on the other side of the world is not separate from our own. And let's just sit with that for a moment. This is the truth of interbeing, and it is the ground of both our compassion and our responsibility. To understand this is to feel, not just to know, that harm to one is harm to all, and healing for one brings healing to the whole. But this interconnectedness also means something more subtle, something heavier. It means that we feel the weight of the world. We carry grief that is not only ours. We carry stories that did not begin with us. We witness injustice, conflict, climate anxiety, division, and still we remain present. Still we ask, how do we stay open-hearted without being swept away? How do we meet suffering without drowning in it? This is where the metaphor of the currents of suffering offer us something gentle and true. Suffering, or dukkha, is not a block. It's not a wall. It's not a fixed thing. It moves. It flows. It has texture, depth, momentum. We are not drowning in it. We are navigating through it. And with practice, with wisdom and compassion, we can move through it with grace. And this brings us to the final part of our title, Navigating with Wisdom's Compass. In Buddhism, wisdom is not cold. It's not distance. It's not an ivory tower of intellect. Wisdom is warm. It's embodied insight. It arises not just from thinking, but from deep seeing, from presence, from stillness, from lived experience. Wisdom sees clearly not just the surface of things, but their roots, their causes, their interconnections. And wisdom helps us ask, what is really happening here? What response will lead to healing? And how do I act without causing further harm? It's not a map. Maps try to predict the path. They offer fixed routes. Wisdom's not like that. Wisdom is a compass. It doesn't hand us all the answers. It doesn't say turn right here or go straight there. Instead, it orients us moment by moment, breath by breath. It gives us direction, not instructions. And it helps us move not reactively, but responsively, not from fear, but from clarity, and not from habit, but from discernment. Prajna, wisdom, is how we navigate the ever-shifting currents of life with depth, with responsiveness, with compassion. And with the humility to know we are always learning, always listening, always turning gently towards what heals. Let me share a few reflections from our root text, which guides this exploration. Wisdom reveals the profound interconnectedness of all beings, reminding us that harm to one is harm to all. And this is not poetry, this is ontology. In Mahayana Buddhism and in ecological ethics alike, interconnectedness is not an abstract concept, it's reality. Practical wisdom. Every act of harm ripples through the web of life. Every act of care strengthens the whole. This invites a shift from reactivity to responsiveness, from division to discernment. And this isn't just a spiritual ideal, it's practical reality. When systems marginalize certain groups, it's not just their problem, it's society's. When a single community suffers, our collective humanity is diminished. So let's pause here. Let that truth settle. Let it inform how we listen, how we speak, how we move through the world. When we feel the pain of another as our own, walls collapse. We shift from judgment to understanding, from othering to kinship. Empathy becomes natural when we truly see others as not other. And from that empathy arises a sense of responsibility, not guilt, but responsibility, the ability to respond with care. And suffering demands a response, but not all responses are skillful. We live in reactionary times, but wisdom says, pause. Wisdom invites us to ask, will this action bring healing or deepen the wound? Will it unite or divide? Am I acting from love or reacting from fear? What's truly at stake here? Is this a reaction or a response? Sometimes we're tempted to rush towards action, to post, to protest, to fight. And yeah, there may be times when these are necessary. But even then, we are called to act with intention, not just from outrage, but from clarity and compassion. Before we act, speak, or judge, breathe, observe, and discern. A moment of anger might make you feel righteous, but does it build bridges or burn them? Wisdom is the long game of compassion. Let us choose it. We live in a time of deep political polarization and unrest. Tensions are high, voices are loud, lines have been drawn. And in the midst of all of this, wisdom calls us to resist simplistic solutions. In a world of noise and urgency, this is a radical act. Instead of certainty, wisdom chooses complexity, inquiry, humility. So let's pause here. Not easy traits in a time of slogans and shoutings. Emotions run high, truth feels slippery. It's easy to reduce things to sides. Not us versus them, not wrong versus right. Wisdom sees nuance. Wisdom says yes and. But wisdom doesn't stop there. It asks us to go deeper still. Don't just treat symptoms, look deeper. Ask, what histories shaped this unrest? What systems are upholding this suffering? What has been ignored, dismissed, or denied? What are the root causes of unrest? What systems failed? What suffering lies beneath the shouting? And then we must turn inward. We must ask ourselves, are we seeking truth or simply defending our views? Are we willing to sit with complexity or are we escaping into certainty? Wisdom does not simplify reality. It doesn't flatten it. It helps us hold it with steadiness, with grace, with compassion. It helps us to resist the lure of easy answers and instead open up to nuance, humility, and truth. This is the compass. And it points not away from the world, but deeper into it. with eyes open, with a steady heart, with wisdom as our guide. So let me ask you this. Where are we getting our information? Do we only listen to voices that agree with us, or are we curious, or are we clinging? And these questions aren't just intellectual, they're deep practice. So step outside the algorithm. Listen to those who challenge you, not to agree, but to understand, not to win, but to open. Wisdom is not found in the echo chamber. It's found in the courage to listen when it's uncomfortable to do so. Not to debate, not dismissal, but dialogue. Not speaking to defeat, but listening to connect. Listen to understand. Respond with respect. Find common ground and shared humanity. This is not passive. This is not weak. This is deep strength. This too is our practice. Not just meditation on the cushion, but mindfulness and conversation, compassion and disagreement, humility in the face of not knowing. Because if our practice doesn't shape how we speak, how we listen, how we learn, then what are we really practicing? Even those who perpetrate harm are part of the symphony. Wisdom doesn't excuse harm, but it knows change made from hate rarely heals. Wisdom is not passive. It doesn't say, let it be. It asks, what is the most skillful way to relieve suffering? In the Buddhist tradition, this is known as upaya, skillful means. Chogyam Trungpa said, there's no need to philosophize your work in order to make it spiritual. It has spiritual bearing anyway. If you regard yourself as a person on the spiritual path, then whatever you do is part of the path, an expression of the path. Decentralization, the absence of ego, the lack of searching for happiness is not avoiding pain. All of that brings us into a reality of dealing with things directly and thoroughly. Dealing with things in this decentralized, egoless manner is known in the Buddhist tradition as upaya, or skillful means, end quote. So with skillful means, we meet people where they are. Use the tools that best serve the moment. Peaceful protest, education, restorative justice, inner transformation. Whatever the method, wisdom asks us to act firmly but gently, with resolve rooted in love, not resentment, grounded in compassion, free from hatred, rooted in the long view. Wisdom is not an abstraction. It's a way of being, a compass in the dark, a quiet song in the noise. Remember, we are all part of the same song. We do not act alone. Our clarity, our compassion, our stillness, these matter. In closing, I offer these reflections not as answers, but as invitations to listen more deeply, to pause more often, to meet the world with a heart that is both tender and discerning, to trust that even in the midst of suffering, we can find our way together by listening for the silent music beneath it all and letting wisdom be our compass, even now, especially now. May our lives become the instruments in the silent symphony of interbeing, tuned to the key of compassion and guided by the compass of wisdom. I hope that this talk has been beneficial to you. May your week be filled with compassion, wisdom, gratefulness, and joy.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Bran Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.